I'm recording now. So thank you all so much for joining us this morning for part 2 of our mindfulness meditation. Today we're going to be focusing on building stability. And what it might be worth doing, as we have a few newcomers here, is just doing a quick recap of what we covered off last week. So last week what we looked at was attention and awareness and the difference between the two. So attention is what we choose to concentrate our mind's focus on. Let me just change my gallery view so that my attention is good. So the attention is what we choose to focus our mind's concentration on. Awareness, on the other hand, is a motion sensor that sweeps the environment around us and allows us to call attention to anything that could be a potential threat, but also, as you well know by now, after 1 week's meditation practice, anything that's a good hook for our mind to sink into. Yeah. So we have our attention, which is our single pointed concentration and that peripheral awareness. So we talked about being a hunter on the plains of Africa, stalking a wildebeest, and you're there and your attention is there on your prey and you are connected to it in the moment and you're stalking it. It has your full attention, but unbeknownst to you, your awareness is sweeping the environment for anything that could be a potential threat. And as soon as it picks up a lion waiting in the leaves over there, in the tall grass, it circumvents your brain and it sends an immediate request to respond. And before your attention is even aware of it, you're in fight, flight, or freeze mode. And nowadays, we may not have all of the lions and the wildebeest or the plains of Africa, but our brain doesn't know that because our brain is essentially still wired to threat. And we perceive threat in uncertainty. We perceive threats through injustice and also through status, because we're essentially still primordially monkeys, right? And when I say perceive, the reason I say this is because if you notice, when you start to think about it, you're obviously not getting necessarily in the moment, experiencing that injustice or that uncertainty or that status threat, but even just thinking about the story of the threat brings on that emotional and mental response. So our bodies nowadays are constantly flooded with cortisol and all of those same responses, chemical responses, that we're used to receiving through real actual threats. Our bodies and our minds are wired, absolutely wired to threat. And that's where mindfulness is so powerful, because even just 10 minutes of meditation every day drops your cortisol levels and takes away that idea of perceived threat so that you're able to focus on the present. And that's what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is the experience of the moment, being in the present, but it's also without judgment and without interpretation. And that means without the narrative that goes on in your head. And the way that we use mindfulness is we focus on something, such as our body or the state of our mind, things that we have constantly with us, and that are dynamic enough to keep our attention and our awareness. And we focus very much on how it feels, because our body and our mind only exist in the present. When we feel into how our body, when we feel into our body, we feel how it feels now. You might think about how your body was yesterday, but that's only a representation. It's only a video playing back in your mind, and it's purely subjective. So the past is just a perception. It's not now. And when you think of the future, it's only an illusion. And a lot of our time gets spent with this constant rumination of what ifs. What ifs, what do I need to do? I should, I could, that's all narrative too. And when we step into our body and into our present, we're able to just drop that. And when we can drop that narrative circuitry, peace, profound, still peace. And this is something that's best experienced rather than explained. But this is the basis of a lot of Eastern philosophy. So when you do yoga, it's really about stilling your mind by anchoring into your body. Yeah. And it's about switching off that chatter, that constant commentary, this judgment, everything that we perceive. This is good, this is bad. When we're in the present, we just let it be. It just is. Yeah. So this is probably a good space to just stop and ask those who were here last week if they've had a chance to do their homework and to hear what their own experiences were of mindfulness. And I asked if you could journal down any insights that you had, both about attention and awareness, but also about the impact of doing a daily mindfulness meditation. Who would like to share?
Maybe I can kick this off. Yeah, I've, I've been doing meditation for a bit longer. I mean, so I'm trying to do it every day using this Headspace app. And although it's mostly recommended to do this in the morning, I typically do this in the evening because I find it easier to switch off and then do this just before I go to bed. And usually through that, I not even feel only, but also see from my Apple app that I sleep better. Yes, it does. What I notice at times, it's not always that I reach this state of complete being in the now and in the moment. But when I do, it's only since I don't know, after years of trying, since about a month or two, that I'm every now and then able to get to that state of being just completely disconnected. And it's in the beginning, it's quite scary because, and it sort of immediately brings you back to your thoughts and distracts you. But by the time you learn to accept that state is actually quite nice, you start looking forward to reaching it. And yeah, again, it's not always every day that I get there. But when I do, invariably, I feel very, very in an enormous wave of calm and peace coming over me, which is absolutely fantastic. Even sometimes it lasts only for a few seconds. And then we talked about noise around us when you do this. And I think one of the things I understood is when you start accepting ambient noise, whatever it is, it almost becomes part of the experience itself. And then I had a couple of days ago, a moment where I realized that I was in that state of completely being in the now and in the present. And yet I could hear sounds. And that was about the most bizarre experience where you're sort of switched off and it's simple. I know that I hear sounds and it doesn't distract me from the state I'm in. That was absolutely amazing. But yeah, like I said, it has taken, I think, 3 years. And then there were periods of time where I did not practice. But it's taken 3 years to get to a point where I'm finally getting familiar with the process and accept and look forward to reaching that state. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Matthew. That sounds like you have very stable attention and awareness, if you had that complete focus on both. And thank you also for mentioning the point about the mind's resistance. At first, it felt a bit frightening. And when we work with mindfulness, we start to understand how the mind works and how it best responds so that we can harness and channel that. So another thing that we covered off in last week's session was that rather than use a stick to the brain and notice when our mind wanders and go, God, my mind wandered, I'm terrible, I can't meditate. What we do is we reward awareness for picking up when our mind wanders, and we do something to reinforce that reward. So for me, it's like a tingle down the back every time I notice that my mind wanders, and it's a case of well done, awareness. You just picked up that my attention had moved from the central point, and you bring it back. And the brain loves a reward, so it keeps on noticing, and that muscle grows stronger. And as with your clarity, Matthew, so it is with that ability to notice when your awareness wanders. And that's another aspect of mindfulness. It's a way to profoundly affect the structure and workings of the mind. Not just your ability to focus and to be aware, but a whole of other physiological benefits as well. Anyone else?
I'll have a go. Hi. I've only practiced a couple of times. In the mid-afternoon, a couple of times. I tend to doze off, so I'm on the dullness end of the scale. I think we talked about last week. After about 10 minutes, I think it's nice, but then I can feel my mind just wandering off into that sort of area that you get into when you just before you doze off, and you start. Sometimes you catch yourself thinking about really strange things that don't make sense. It's almost dreamlike, and you suddenly think about what you just thought about, and you're going, well, that's just odd, you know. And that's it, and then I'm gone. And then a couple of times I've meditated just before going to bed, but like Matthew, as a way of just calming down prior to sleep. But strangely enough, in those situations, my mind is whirring away, and I don't really reach that point of silence. I'm just constantly catching myself going off thinking about things about tomorrow or what have you. So yeah, I guess not very satisfactory results, either dullness or just too much going on. But it's a practice, so I need to do more.
I would say great awareness for catching yourself as your mind drifted into dullness, or great awareness that your mind was in an excitation mode. Question, when your mind was moving into dullness and you caught yourself having a moment where you said, that is odd, were you actually yourself in the moment? Or were you someone else?
When I catch myself, I was myself.
Okay. And
I was aware.
And whatever you were experiencing at that moment, even though it wasn't true, did it feel very true emotionally and mentally?
Yeah. I mean, it was almost like a dream, but being conscious of dreaming and then catching yourself, sort of thing.
Thank you for sharing. It kind of makes you question, how real that narrative is when you wake up in the moment and you bring yourself to center. Yeah. What's the story? Where's the story? Back to center. Okay. Anyone else? James, Susie?
Okay. Yeah, so I skipped a couple of days, but have been doing it. I'm okay at kind of getting started, and I'm okay at kind of doing about sort of 2 minutes, and I can kind of get into the swing. But where I think I struggle is maybe a lack of discipline or process in terms of where to focus my mind, because what I'm perfectly capable, I find, of zoning into ambient noise, and putting my attention there, or putting my attention onto different onto your body, or different parts of your body, or scanning you. These are things which I can which I can do, but only for a short period of time before I'm then like, okay, done now. Let's kind of like, and that thought just keeps, just keeps sort of coming back, and then I kind of go, okay, stuff it. Let's go and get myself a cup of tea type thing. So, and I think that maybe it's a lack of process, or I need something to be able to more simply kind of follow as a, you know what I mean, as a discipline, because I'm flipping between different things in terms of where I'm placing my attention, which is, and then ultimately I just sort of feel like I'm running out of things to do.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we can cover off process and discipline today.
Cool.
Thank you for the feedback. Yeah. Susie, what about you? Would you like to share? Or are you okay?
No, I think I'm okay. I mean, I think what James was just mentioning is kind of, I have similar sort of questions around kind of, it's like a, maybe it's like a, more kind of structured way to kind of move through it, right? I mean, I guess it probably comes to you eventually, but like once you're kind of learning how to do it, that would be, I think that would be really good too. So.
Perfect. Okay, so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. It's really building stability in our practice, and there's two aspects of that. That's one in terms of our building the ongoing practice and fighting the resistance of our mind, that natural drag. And part of that is having a process. And the other one is building the stability of our attention during the meditation session. So I hear you, or I've heard your feedback in terms of parts of the day that are really, really useful for you to meditate in. Maybe it's better after a run or after in the evening, just as you're about to sleep. I personally find in the morning, before anyone wakes up, before I check my phone, before I start inputting, sources of other chatters are essential for me. So part of it is a logistical process of just working out when is best for you. And sometimes it means being an opportunistic meditator. So if I notice my anxiety levels are rising, it's just pausing, taking a breath, maybe sitting in my car or putting on an app or just taking a couple of deep breaths. Essentially, meditation can be as long as one breath cycle. As long as it calms you down and brings you to center. The more you practice, you will be able to bring yourself into center with just one breath. So it's finding the times in the day that really work for you. The second part is focusing on the benefits, and that becomes part of your process when you drop into meditation. So really working out and reminding yourself as a positive reinforcement to your mind why you meditate. So for me, I meditate because my days just go so much better when I do. I'm so much more focused. Everything just falls into place. For me, it's also essential for me to connect into myself so that I am able to grow and learn and get insights. And tap into that wisdom that we all have within ourselves. So if there's ever a problem that's out there, I always go in and I meditate and I go inwards to work out my response to it. So when we meditate, part of it is to get the routine in the morning or in the afternoon, or to work out when that works best, to remind yourself with each meditation what the benefits are, to be aware when your mind goes, I don't want to do that, I want to sleep in today. And part of it is that commitment where it hears it and goes, I'm just going to do it anyway. So part of it is resolve. But believe me, it is 100% natural that your mind goes, I can't be bothered, and to come up with reasons and not to do it. In fact, when I studied mindfulness, applied mindfulness, we did whole weeks just on how the mind will push away from this and strategies to get back into center. And you've just heard the very quick recap of that. Just do it, reinforce the benefits, and work it out in a way that fits into your life or gives you the best results or allows you to be most focused. In terms of the process, and I'll lead you through this as we do a meditation practice later, I'll teach you the way that I was taught. So I go in, okay, take a couple of deep breaths, focus immediately on sit bones and feet. We're anchoring our body, okay? And we will do all this later. I'll just do the talky bit first, okay? Recap in our mind what the benefits are. So our mind is primed. It's in a state of, oh, good, I want to do this, yeah? And then what we start to do is we start to call attention to the 5 senses, okay? So we're slowly bringing in our bodily awareness and our attention into center using our body. And what we do is, depending on how practiced you are with meditation, we start on the very, very coarse and we get more and more refined. So the very, very coarse would be breath into your abdomen. You can actually feel it with your hands expand and contract, okay? And the more nuanced you get with your meditation, you're able to start focusing on the breath at the tip of your nose. So it might look funny, but stick your finger just underneath your nose and breathe in and breathe out. And can you feel it's a very gentle tickling on the out breath? And also a slight sensation on the in breath. Now, I'm not saying you should meditate like this because we'd all look very, very silly. But essentially what you'll end up doing when you've got that real stability is you'll focus on the breath through the tip of your nose, how it feels just underneath on your lip, but also on your nose, what do you call it? Your nose canal, your nose, your nostrils, and the hairs inside your nostrils. And we can get to that in the second meditation, today's session, but I would suggest what we do is we just start on the course. We start on the abdomen. So the other part of building stability is building stability of your attention. Yeah, and your attention exists in 3 potential states. One is that single pointed attention on the object, which is your breath. Okay, going into your abdomen, feeling it in and out. And then, as you noticed, it might go dull. Dull is typified when your head goes forward, like you're falling asleep, and often you can fall asleep, okay? And you sometimes wake up, your awareness calls you back, and you've been shanghaied, you're somewhere else entirely. You're in the middle of a daydream. On the other hand, you've got excitation, otherwise known as monkey mind. And that's typified by your mind having a hook. And it starts off with the commentary like, oh, I'm meditating. Oh, who is this? Hello. You know, what are you doing? Voice in my head. And then it starts to move on to what shall I have for breakfast? And then what am I doing today? And then before you know it, you're somewhere else entirely. And this is typified by almost stepping stones of your mind, taking you away to a different place. So when you notice your dullness and your attention, you need to apply the 2 antidotes. And the antidote to dullness is clarity. So when you notice your mind or your mind going dull and your head tipping forward, correct your posture and then breathe in. As you breathe in clarity, okay? Try and really sharpen your mind. And if it helps you, say the word clarity and really breathe in. If it helps you, breathe in light or just anything to help sharpen your mind, okay? And then the antidote to excitation is relaxation. And it's funny because the way that we do this with our breath actually mirrors how we are in our life. So relaxation tends to always be on the out breath. You know, when you're anxious and suddenly, oh, I need to relax, right? Or when when you need to get clarity, you're constantly having shallow in-breaths. So we tend to do relaxation on the out-breath and clarity on the in-breath. So we're going to practice. We're going to do a little session now where the object is going to be breath in our abdomen. And we're going to imagine it's like driving a car down a road and there are 2 ditches either side. And you constantly need to steer. Okay, to stay in the middle of the road. You notice you're going towards dullness. Use clarity. Focus on the in-breath. Clarity. Steer back in the middle. You notice your brain is going hectic into monkey mind land. Relaxation. Bring it into center. Yeah. And what we're going to do is we're just going to breathe in clarity and breathe out relaxation. And you can say it in your mind. In fact, let's practice saying it in our mind as we do this. Focusing on the breath, breathing in clarity and out relaxation. So are you ready to try? I'll lead you into a proper meditation using our process. Okay, so get into a comfortable position. Make sure that your neck is stacked right on top of your back and your spine so that it's straight. Make sure that your sit bones are comfortable. Yeah, and shut your eyes if you would like. Okay, and take a couple of deep breaths. Take a moment to just really appreciate this time and this space that you have given yourself. Okay, and take a moment to remind yourself of why you're here and the benefits that meditation can offer you. Now we're going to start to call our attention from the outside world in to our body, anchored in the here and now. And as you feel the weight of your body on your sit bones, I want you to notice the sensations of your body. Feel the contact of your feet upon the floor. Notice your shoulders gently relax. And the tension between your shoulder blades slowly unspool. Relax your jaw. Notice the contact of your body against the chair. Does it feel heavy? Does it feel warm? Focus your attention on any parts of your body that are in contact with itself. Hair against your neck, arms on your knees. Where else is it touching? What does it feel like? Lip on lip, eyelid to eyelid. All of these parts that we never notice. And we call our attention now to sounds. What can we hear around us? And the more you listen, the more nuance you will hear, more depth. What can you smell? Does it smell different on the in-breath than it does on the out-breath? Is it connected to your taste? What can you taste? So this is the process that we go through as we meditate, and we bring our body and our mind's attention into ourselves. And I want you to focus now on the tactile sensations of your breath as you breathe into your abdomen. Long, deep breaths in and long, deep breaths out. Notice, is there a pause? Is the pause on the out breath longer than the pause on the in breath? We use the breath because it's dynamic enough to keep our mind constantly engaged. It's always changing. And it's always reflecting our state of mind. And I want you to call awareness now to what your state of mind is. Is it feeling dull? Is it feeling excited? Do you have thoughts skipping all over the place? And if you have resistance, just notice it. I have there is resistance. Don't identify with it and bring it back to center as you focus on your breath. And as you do so on the in-breath, I want you to imagine clarity. Breathe in clarity. And on the out-breath, breathe out relaxation. And if it helps, you can count. If you're able to count to 10, with 1 being an in-breath for clarity, an out-breath with relaxation. If you're able to do that 10 times, then you reset. But it's not easy. Watch your mind. Call attention to it if it wanders. And reward it when it's able to catch itself. I'm going to go silent for a few minutes now. Clarity on the in-breath, sharpen the mind. Relaxation on the out-breath. And if you notice your mind wandering, then congratulate yourself. Reward yourself. Okay, so take one more deep breath and come back into the room. How did you find that? What did you notice about dullness and excitation and applying the antidotes of clarity and relaxation? Shall we go round actually from top to bottom? So Darren, start with you.
That was easier this time. So still dull, but the repeating to myself clarity on the in-breath did help. So that kept me going. When we were counting, I got all the way through to 9, and then 10, sort of midway through the 10, I wandered off, and I needed another clarity breath after that, just to finish it off.
Well done. That's not easy to get to 9. Hats off to you. Susie?
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, I think that yeah, I could feel myself, just because I'm a little bit sleepy, kind of drifting, or I could feel my head kind of wobbling around a little bit. But so it was really helpful just kind of have that kind of, one word, and I just kind of straightened up, right? And that really helped. Yeah, so it was a really good exercise. I feel like it was progress for sure, because I felt pulling myself into the middle again more easily.
Thank you, Susie. Well done.
Thank you.
James, what about you? You're on mute.
I think that the focus on breathing, or the more singular focus on breathing, definitely helped a lot. It was a more effective, actually, than it was last week. Generally, I found that I was able to count, which I think is it made me laugh when you said if you can count to 10. I was like, well, yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it was good actually. I think that counting was quite helpful, because it gave some sort of time space to the exercise.
Yeah. And if you notice your mind wandering, it needs to reset. My audio. It needs to reset back to 0. Yeah.
Harsh, but okay, cool. Yeah.
Because then you're able to actually quantify your attention. It's like today I'm able to get up to a 10, but yesterday I was only able to get up to a 2. Your mind likes the rewards, but
okay.
it's calling attention on your attention.
Quality
of your attention. Okay.
Okay.
Matthew?
Yeah, it was good. I managed to it was short bursts of moments where I was really switching off. And I think one of the things that in the beginning when I started put me off is these deep breath. And actually you do that in the beginning, but by the time you start focusing on, well, nothing basically, trying to switch off your mind and trying to get into the moment, I tend to take a shallower breath, which helped me to actually to take the focus away on the fact that I'm so focused on the breath, and then I'm able to, like I said last time, I'm literally staring at the inside of my eyelids. And today it was kind of, there were all sorts of like light bursts inside, and I try to follow them. And by the time I do that, I really switch off. But today, when I was going into that moment, someone slammed the door somewhere in the house. So I jumped back into the now. But yeah, that's what you have to accept when these things are ongoing. That was good, and I like the idea of clarity and relaxation. I've not heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great use of the breath as well. How you use that to gain clarity rather than too much relaxation at the beginning. You took that sip to just focus your mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really forcing yourself to breathe I had moments in the beginning where I just started to almost hyperventilate because I was just too much. It's not necessary. You can do shallow breath as long as you feel the air going in and out. That's more what I tend to focus on instead of just being like really tensely focused on breath only. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Matthew. Sophie, how about you?
Actually, I have to say that I'm really willing to progress, and I've been meditating for a while. And well, thank you first, because I think that I personally enjoy very much the guidance. I think guidance is so cool, because even though some people are able to, I mean, everyone is different, but at least it's just like if you would give the direction on a path. Literally, I have a lot of metaphor. And then for me, I find meditation difficult when it's just like, jump into the silence and meditate. Even though some people are good at that, I enjoy very much the guidance, because it's just like an orchestra chief who is going to give the way, the direction. And then just if I may share, for me, I used to wonder always. And then at the beginning, that was the most difficult, but I tamed this idea of allowing. So I might not reward, but I accept that my mind is going away. But thanks to the guidance, to counting, for instance, I find it very pleasant, because it's something like very peaceful, It's not about good or not good, but just go back on counting. And then after, when you let us in the silence, it was just like if we were all on a horse on the same pace of galloping nicely. And it's really nice.
I love that idea of being on a horse and being in complete synchronicity with your body. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Actually, I have to say that I agree with what Matthew just said. Maybe it sounds like hyperventilation, but I can feel some tingling in my fingers. I have this physical feelings of feeling my blood, or so that's very pleasant, actually,
That's very sensitive.
Yeah.
Attention is very, very focused and sensitive. That's great. Thank you. Ella, I just saw that you had problems hearing me. Can you hear me okay now? Yes. Your microphone.
I know. Yes, I hear you very well. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stayed. Yes. This is very new for me. I think I belong to the set of people who cannot meditate ever. Like, it's impossible for me to sort of calm down my mind. And I agree with Sophie. I think it's very difficult to do without a guidance. So that was new and different for me. And what I noticed, since I'm very new, it's very I feel my perception. I think my perception is quite unsubtle. But what I felt the idea of clarity was very interesting for me. At the beginning, I was trying to focus just on breathing. But then when I focused on the idea of clarity, then my breathing rhythm changed immediately, and I kind of found a natural breathing rhythm, and it just changed the whole rhythm and sort of melody of the meditation. So, but it was really the idea of clarity. I thought it was really helpful.
Thank you, Ella.
Thank you.
Aileen?
Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. What I did notice was one sound which surprised me, because there is a lot of noise happening around here, but I heard Mum come home. And I think that was just reassurance that she's back in the house, because she's been out visiting her mum. And as soon as I heard it, it was like, thank you, she's all right. And then it went. And I didn't hear any other sound apart from your voice, which was really good for me. I did notice that my mind wandered a few times early on when I was doing the breathing. And this is something for me to look at, because the reward for me was saying thank you and acknowledging the thought. So then I started getting in this circle of thank you. Oh yeah, thank you. And I'm like, stop it. And I realized that, and I kind of knew this, that words of affirmation are important to me. So in the end, I had to say, thank you. We will explore this later, to try and push it out to break that cycle. I didn't count. And I noticed that when I was listening to people, I went, oh my gosh, I heard you say count and I didn't count. But I think it was like, when you said count, I still had that monkey mind bit going on with my thank you, thank you, thank you. And then that stopped. And then it was clarity and relaxation. And that's all I was hearing for the rest of it. And then I heard you say one more breath, and I'm like, oh, okay, time to come back. So it was really good. I felt really centered in the end, which is good.
Great awareness. Thank you so much, Kayleen. So did you guys notice anything about the stability of your attention on both the in-breath and the out-breath? Was it stronger on one than on the other? Because generally what they find is that the danger zone is on relaxation. Our mind tends to wander the most on the out-breath with relaxation. So there's another little trick that you can apply if you find yourself constantly moving into dullness, like you were saying you do, Darren. So on the out-breath, just mark it somehow. So for example, if you're breathing into your abdomen, maybe just hold it there and count the pause, or do something so that it gives your mind that trigger to not just drift off, and it allows it to continue back into the in-breath. So just be hyper aware. No, sorry, I correct that. We don't want hyper aware, because that's monkey mind. Just be aware that the danger lies in the relaxation, and use something to keep it fascinated on the out breath and going back in. And then the other thing that is a really great technique to use as we start to progress, we're going to start noticing what our mind attends to. So when it moves into excitation or into dullness, and you bring awareness to it, and you say, well done, and you come back to center, instead of attaching to what it is that your mind was focusing on, label it in a category. So that could be, in my instance, food, planning, kids, food, and just have it in those buckets of categories, because then what you do is you're able to start noticing different trends to what your mind attends to. And as we start to work with mindfulness meditation, we're going to be looking at what our mind attends to. And essentially, this is a huge basis of what we do coaching around, right? What is our mind focusing on? And when we're able to call awareness to what our mind attends, we can start noticing how it impacts our lives, and we can start to choose our response. And there is huge freedom in that. Yeah. So the two additional things to keep in mind is just notice and label and watch out for the out breath. Any questions? Okay. So this is a lot to take in. I've given a huge amount of things to practice. James, you wanted things to help keep your mind focused. There we go. We've got the antidote to dullness and excitation. We've got clarity and relaxation. We've got the breath in the abdomen. We've got the clarity on the in-breath, relaxation on the out-breath. We're allowing ourselves to notice if we get more sleepy or detached on the out-breath and calling it back in. And we can use that by creating some sort of fascinating trigger or fascinating way to keep our mind attached or our attention attached. We're also rewarding our mind instead of punishing it. Mindful meditation is all about compassion. A lot to go on. And I think the next session, what we're going to do is we should work on building stability even more. And towards the end of that, we will start working on what the mind attends to. And in our final session, our fourth session, we can focus on the mind as the object of our concentration. Calling awareness to our mind. Yeah. So any questions on that? No? Okay. So in terms of homework, I'm going to ask you to continue with your 20 minutes every day. Keep on journaling. And this time, in addition to noticing your breath and how your mind wanders and labeling it and reinforcing it thankfully and rejoicingly back to center, I want you to practice on the clarity and the relaxation. Noticing the states of your mind so that you're constantly steering between dullness and excitation. And you can count. You can use 1 to 10, resetting, and then noticing. So please journal any awareness that you have, both about dullness and excitation, about where your mind goes, what it attends to, what key categories, and the impact it's having on your days. Yeah. We've got a few minutes till the end of the session. Does anybody want to feedback anything, or does anyone have any questions? Or is there anything else that you would like me to expand on further?
I have a question about the clarity. So I know that's kind of the antidote to dullness, right? Or being kind of a little bit sleepy. So I guess my question, it's not really I'm not going to articulate it very well early in the morning, but I was just thinking about it as kind of waking myself up a little bit. I mean, but I think is that all it is, or is it more just like having that clear focus rather than just, not the monkey mind, but just kind of the not much of anything? Is it just literally just waking yourself up so you're right there in your mind?
You ask the best question, Susie. So yes, it is. It's both. Because when you do really draw your attention into sharpening your focus on the object of your concentration, which is the breath, you wake up anyway.
Okay.
So it's not so much, hey, wakey, wakey. It's more okay of, all right, really breathe in, focus mind on the breath. Okay. It's really about that clarity of focus.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Sorry. So kind of a random question, but just no, that helps.
That's a great question, because these things are really hard to explain. It's just something you have to experience. Does anybody else have any techniques or things that they've noticed about the use of clarity? Or does what I say resonate?
What you just said then has helped, because I've just written down clarity of breath as my reminder for what I'm going to do, because when I want clarity, I want information coming in so that I can get clarity. And I think that's what was my challenge early on in that meditation, because I just had all this noise going on. But I think when I practice, it's clarity of breath and that focus on that, I think that's going to make a big difference, instead of clarity of, I want answers. I want to know, what am I supposed to be focusing on? So that's normally what I use clarity for. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how I go.
Perfect. Yeah. So thank you for helping bring clarity to clarity, Susie. Really what we're trying to do is create single pointed concentration, full attention on the object of our breath. Yeah. So we have 1 minute left. I'm going to just ask you guys to shut your eyes and drop into your mind and set your intention for today. What are you going to put your attention on today? Okay. So if you're enjoying this meditation space, I strongly encourage you to carry on after we switch off here. But I thank you for all of your time, intention, and attention, and the great awareness that you brought in today's session. Thank you very much. I look forward to catching up with you all next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Georgie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.